Welcome back to Passport to Flavor with me, Chef Ripley. It's March, which means it's now officially almost time for Ramadan. So today, in honor of all of the Muslim community here in Montgomery County, we're gonna be making some falafel. If you don't know what falafel is, it's just like a chickpea fritter type thing. And also it's kind of green. So March 17th is also St. Patrick's Day. So you could make this then, even if you're not celebrating Ramadan. So what I have here is about a half pound of dried chickpeas. We want to use dried chickpeas for this recipe. Are there recipes out there for falafel that use canned chickpeas? Yes, but the texture is going to be completely off from what you would get if you were to go to any restaurant and get it. So with these chickpeas, they're hard. We need them to soften up. So all I'm going to do is take some water, cold water, and just soak these beans at room temperature overnight. Just making sure that they're covered about an inch, and we'll let these soak overnight at room temperature just to kind of loosen up. Now, some recipes ask you to cook the chickpeas beforehand, but the recipe that I have, they're gonna cook in their own moisture as we fry them. So simple recipe, we don't even have to worry about cooking them down the line. So we'll just put the lid on these, leave them out, and tomorrow they'll be all ready to go, but you don't have to wait till tomorrow. I have some ready, I just gotta go grab them. Okay, so if we look over here, and we look at the chickpeas we just put in, they're still kind of hard and small. But as we look at the ones that have been sitting overnight, the color has changed. They're more yellow and they've expanded, right? This is what we're looking for. We want them to get to this size and this texture, because this means there's a lot of moisture in them that we're gonna be able to use to help kind of steam them as they fry. So let me just put these to the side and we're gonna drain these out. So now, next step, we're blending the ingredients and getting these all dry. If you have a salad spinner, it's a great way to get these super uber dry. But if not, just any colander works. We're just gonna dump them in here. And we're just gonna shake it around until we don't see a lot of moisture. Okay, now, over here, we have our food processor, which we're just gonna dump all these chickpeas in, as well as a couple other ingredients. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these chickpeas, dump them into this food processor, and now it's time to add the rest of our ingredients. To this, we're gonna add a teaspoon of cumin, a half teaspoon of coriander, which is, if you don't know what coriander is, it's cilantro seeds, essentially. And then finally, 2 teaspoons of salt. Also with this, we need that green herbage. So in this case, it's gonna be about 6 green onions, which I'll go ahead and chop up. If you've never used green onions before, we do wanna use all of it, except for about 1 inch on the top, because they do sometimes grow in dirt. Essentially, some people always wonder, how much do we use? Of course, we're gonna cut off this hairy end here, but then we're gonna cut it up to about 1 inch, 2 inches on the end, depending on how dark it is, because that's where some like dirt can grow, because they grow in dirt. So just cutting that off is gonna limit that. So we'll just chop off these hairy ends here. And once again, a little bit on the ends over here, just to make sure that we have clean, beautiful pieces. And it's going in the food processor. We don't need to super chop it. I'm just gonna break it down into like smaller pieces, just so the food processor is not working too hard. We'll dump this in and drop some apparently, but that's okay. So we'll dump this in. And then last ingredients is a little bit of parsley, a little bit of cilantro. If you're like my family, I grew up not liking cilantro. It's one of those things that tastes like soap to me. Other people love it. You don't have to use one or the other. If you hate parsley, you can just use all cilantro. But traditionally, we're gonna use both. So I'll just take a little bit of this parsley here, cilantro here, as well as a little bit of this parsley. And that's all the ingredients. Now we're just gonna blend this up, and then we need to start heating up our oil. It's gonna take a little while for this oil to heat up, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that working while we're doing the rest of it. So typically, if you're getting falafel at a restaurant, it's going to be a circle ball and it's going to be deep fried. At home, I know a lot of people don't like to deep fry, and oftentimes it's using a lot of oil, which can get expensive. So you can shallow fry these, which is what I'm going to do today. Instead of them being in like a ball, it's going to be more of like a flat pancake type thing, but it's still going to taste the same. So who's going to care anyway, right? So let me put this lid on and then we'll get the oil in, okay? So we're just looking for oil to cover the whole bottom of the pan. It should be coming up like a quarter of an inch up the side of the falafel. So we're just looking for enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan. Like I said, we're not going to submerge these, but if you wanted to, you have a deep fryer, by all means. You can just make these into balls and drop them in, and they'll cook probably even faster, but I know a lot of us don't like the hassle of getting out that deep fryer. So that's going to start heating up. We're going to do this on about a medium, wrong one? That's going to start heating up. We're going to do this on about like a medium high heat, 7 or 8 if you have numbers on your dial. And while that's working, it's time to blend. All we're doing is just making this into like a really rough paste. It might not seem like it stick together. Go in there and grab it with your hands and hopefully it does come together. So I'm just looking around to see the size of everything, and I can still see some bits of the scallion, so I'm gonna go a little bit more. I don't know if you can see it as well from your angle, but what I'm noticing is that it's going from like this bunch of little bits of chickpeas moving around to being more of a paste moving as a group, and that's where I know I'm good to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and get these out and show you a little bit of what it looks like. When I get this out, you can see that it's still falling apart, but if I crunch it together real well, it should hold into a ball, right? And it's not doing it. So we'll let it go for a little bit longer because it might not be happening yet. Push this down a little bit with the spatula just to make sure everything is getting into the mixer. Nice. Okay, so I'm definitely seeing it working now. I'm seeing more of like a somewhat of like a dough ball moving around, which means we are actually there now. So now it's time to form the patties. Let me just take this blade out so no one gets hurt. And we are just gonna take you could take any cookie scoop you have, or if you don't have a cookie scoop, about a little bit more than a tablespoon, like a really heaping tablespoon is gonna be all you need. I have a purple scoop. Typically they're all the same size, but we're just gonna take these, and when the oil's hot, we're just gonna drop this in and kind of flatten it out. So we're still waiting for this oil to heat up, so we'll let that get there. And then if you're wondering how to tell if oil is hot enough, I know a lot of people like to do the throwing the water in there. That's dangerous, don't do that, that splatters. The greatest way to do it is to take any wooden utensil and put it in. And if you see bubbles coming up around it, you know that it is hot enough. That's not happening now. I just turned this on, so we're just gonna wait a little bit till it comes up. In the meantime, I'll get a plate with a napkin on it just to kind of drain the oil, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes. All right, the oil seems like it's getting hot enough now, so the last step is just cooking these. So like I said, you're just grabbing a scoop. This is probably about 1.5 ounce scoop, maybe a tablespoon-ish or so, and I'm just gonna drop this in. And then because we are not going to be deep frying these, we don't need to leave them as that. So I'm just gonna flatten them down so that they can cook a little bit faster. Not traditionally how falafel is cooked, but still going to be just as delicious. So if it's going to save time, why not do it, right? So I'm just going to keep dropping these in and keep flattening them. And then it's probably going to take about 3 or 4 minutes per side. We're looking for it to get nice and golden brown. Okay, flatten some of these out, let them get nice and cooked. If you're seeing a spot that's not super hot in your pan, move them away from there. We want it to be nice and hot. The colder the pan is, the more oil is going to be absorbed in there. And these aren't supposed to be like a super heavy feeling dish. It's supposed to be light. Yes, it is fried. It's not super light, but nonetheless, should be good. I think I can fit a couple more in here. You don't want to overfill your pan for sure, because that's going to prevent it from getting super dark, but this is a pretty large pan, so I can fit a couple more. And just for good measure, we'll just probably stop it there. Let these cook. What I'm looking for is on the sides for some brown to come up, and then I can just flip it over and let it cook for longer. Like I said, what's happening now is they are frying, yes, but inside of those chickpeas, there's a bunch of water that was in there since overnight, and this is going to kind of release that water, cause it to steam, and cook the chickpeas the rest of the week. Because if you wanted to cook chickpeas from scratch, you still are probably going to have to soak it, and then it's going to take at least 30 minutes to cook, and who's got the time to do that? I would use the canned ones, but it doesn't have that same texture, so this is the way to do it. So we'll just wait here, and when it's ready to flip, I'll let you know, and we'll move on. It's been about 3 or 4 minutes now, and I can see on the side of some of them, it's starting to get to a light brown, and that's what we're looking for. So we're just going to go ahead and flip these over and let them cook the rest of the way, and that's exactly what you're looking for, a color like that. Now I'm seeing that it's getting pretty much golden brown and delicious on all sides now. So once again, we're just going to take these out and let them all rest on this paper towel for a little bit. If you're making these well in advance, you could, after this, put them in the oven at like a really low temperature just to keep them warm for whenever everyone's coming over. Also, these are great to freeze. I honestly have a bag of these in my freezer all the time when I'm like, oh, what am I going to cook? Because buying dried chickpeas, it's like $1.50. Most of the other ingredients you don't really have to worry much about. So just pop these in the freezer, make a big batch, and then whenever you're ready, just get them out, put them in the oven for a couple of minutes, and you got some yummy falafel. All you need to buy is like the pita or whatever you want to serve it with. So we'll just let these sit for a couple of seconds. There's already salt and everything in there, so there's not much more we need to do. While we're waiting for these to cool down, yes, we got a lot of oil here. What we need to do is just let this cool down. My great-grandfather was a plumber and always made sure to make a point of the fact that we do not put oil in the drain. And if you don't know why that is, that's because when you put it down there, it starts to congeal, and over time it can get stuck in there, and then everything gets clogged and you have issues. So just let it cool down. Oil's dangerous, just leave it alone, put it to the side of somewhere, and then once it's cool, put it in a container, some sort of plastic container that can hold it, but don't do that while it's hot because it's just gonna melt. So I'm just gonna move this to the side, out of the way, so we don't have to worry about it, and then it'll be time for plating. So I'll be back in a second. So now it's time for plating. Like I said, you could serve this any way you want. I'm just gonna be serving it in a bowl today because oftentimes my kids at home, they're eating it like a nugget. So here I have a bowl, and like you can see here, I've barely made a third of the batch, and I've already got, let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. So it makes a good amount right away. It's great to have for parties or anything like that. But we'll just take these off and just gently place them in here so we can make a nice little presentation. If you have any extra herbs, you can kind of chop them up on top, which is what I'll do in a second. And just to show you what one of these looks like on the inside, if you break it open, you see that green. Perfect for St. Patrick's Day, once again, if you're trying to look for something that's actually supposed to be green versus just dyed green, right? So if we take a bite, nice and salty, It's soft. It's not like hard like an uncooked bean. And it's got a lot of those herbaceous flavors in there. Like I said, perfect on its own, but who doesn't want a dipping sauce? So make sure you serve it with that tzatziki sauce we made for the Greek burgers in earlier episodes, or anything else that you see fit. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you do make this. Maybe this is something you never had before. Remember, if that's the case, make it. But if you don't like it, still go try it out at a restaurant, because I'm not even a professional at making falafel, but you know, it's fun, it's easy, and I hope you make it at home.